Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Devs, episode 1 and 2. So we'll start spoiler free because it is a premiere episode after all, and we'll give you warning before we go into spoilers. This is the new FX/Hulu miniseries. I'll be honest, it's hard to judge exactly which one's more important out of the two at this point.
Yes, because it's FX on Hulu, I think officially is what it is.
Yes, this is just a new thing we have to deal with now. A lot of FX is going to be this FX on Hulu nonsense. But this is the Alex Garland miniseries, or I should say limited series. Miniseries feels weird for 8 episodes, but limited series. And this is a science fiction show about title kind of gives it away, about devs, but they are doing something potentially science fiction-y. But the main plot of the at least to kick off the show is that this young programmer is brought into the company, and he's already in the company because Ron Swanson Nick Offerman, who's in the show, he plays a character called Forrest. He's like the big head billionaire honcho who owns all this, and he already this guy Sergey already works in the company, but he's invited into the super secret devs portion of the company, and we see him go in there, and ultimately he does go missing, and this leads to his girlfriend, who also works in the company in one of the other areas, wants to look into it, and that's kind of the start of this. That was kind of the log line before we even, back when we first got the description of the show, that was what we were kind of told, is that girlfriend looks into boyfriend's disappearance in weird San Francisco tech company, and there's a science fiction sort of bent to it. So didn't really know what to expect from this, largely because of that. It was very vague in a lot of its person. Yeah. And if anything, what I'm surprised at, without spoilers yet because we're not there, but is just how unmysterious the actual disappearance of the boyfriend is. It's actually, we know all that stuff. Obviously, we'll get to that in spoilers, but we know all that.
Yeah, I will say, I'll give it some credit in that I had kind of forgotten most of that logline about the disappearing boyfriend. I just kind of remembered the weird sci-fi element that was teased, and it's Alex Garland. Okay, sure, I'm there. So I'll give it credit in that. Not that I didn't see it coming, but it did a good job of building up the boyfriend in his own right before anything happened. So kind of not surprised me, perhaps, but it earned what it did after.
Oh sure. If anything, if I have a complaint about it, it's almost the problem that it makes him feel like the main character. And then it shifts, and it's like, oh, okay, now she's the main character. And if I have a complaint right off the bat, is I think she's the worst actor on the show. As the lead, Lily, the actress is Sonoya Mizuno, and unfortunately, I find her delivery of a lot of her lines a bit, I don't know, stilted, I guess.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. It's not the best.
Something feels off, and we've got a lot of good cast members in here. Alison Pill is in here. She's like Katie, who's like the kind of the second in command to Forrest. And what's funny is that she's in Picard right now, so all of a sudden I'm just inundated with Alison Pill everywhere. But she's in here too, and we got that. We got the head of security, Kenton. He's another big main character. We got Jamie, which is Lily's ex-boyfriend, who she kind of turns to for help in the show. So I want to get that complaint out of the way first, because that is kind of probably my biggest complaint. I will say that the visual style and the music of this show are fantastic.
It's very traditional, what I would expect from Garland at this point, but also it's still working for me.
It's very dreamlike. I mean, the music, the opening of the first episode is just this stringed music as it sort of cuts around various characters, none of whom we know yet. It's just very, like, there's a moment in episode 2, and I can say this because we're obviously 1 and 2 came together, but there's a moment in episode 2 where it's like the fog of San Francisco, like descending over like the hills and the bridge and all that, and it felt like Silent Hill. There was just like a 2-minute sequence building up to a scene where like she's walking through this fog, and I'm like, and the music was playing. I was like, this is so much atmosphere in this. Like, it's doing a really good job of making every transitional element feel like there's so much like atmosphere. Like I really feel the presence of the world, and that's a really weird thing to say, but it's really making the surroundings feel like a character.
Yeah, it's got style, but the style has a purpose beyond just, well, we think this will look cool. Because sometimes when you talk about style on TV, it'll be just like, oh, this looks all right. But this actually has a feeling behind the style.
Oh yeah, and it leads into the science fiction element, which we can't really talk about until spoilers, because it's such a
Just
secret.
the concept of what it is something that I would not want to spoil. Yeah.
So yeah, no, I liked it. I mean, like I say, I think the lead actress is a little bit iffy, but I like the themes that it's playing with. It is a slow burn. That's something that you should be aware of. I did find that the style, though, kind of makes it really easy to watch. Like I felt, because it was so stylistic as I was going, I was so into the atmosphere that I never really felt the time as it was going by.
No, I'm with you. It doesn't feel like it's long. 'Cause it's not that long, right? It's slow, but it's not any longer than usual. Maybe like the first episode is like 5 minutes longer or whatever, but it's still within the normal realm of length.
Yeah.
I think there are longer shots, like you say, but the tone, the dreamlike atmosphere, and the music kind of all play into it, feeling really natural in that way.
Yeah, and I do like a lot of the characters in it and the way they talk to each other. There's just, like I say, the lead actress is just a little bit off, but I don't want to rag on her too much. She's not terrible, but
no, she's not really bad, but it's just enough to be noticeable amongst the other cast.
yeah. So, and she's someone who's been in other Garland stuff. She's had smaller roles in previous stuff, and so clearly it's someone that he likes, and that's why she's here. But it is worth mentioning. So no, I really honestly, I think we have to go to spoilers now. I don't think there's anything else we could talk about.
No,
there isn't. There isn't. Now, style, music, cinematography, all good stuff, and then okay, spoiler time, because the plot is completely under wraps. So full spoilers from this point on for Devs, episode 1 and 2. So we focus on Sergey for a lot of the first episode, right? The first half of episode 1 is devoted to him. He's got this meeting, he's pitching like what his team have been doing, and it's basically this algorithm and the supercomputing that is predicting what this it's like a worm or something. They've got like a worm on the,
I think it was like some sort of bacteria or something.
Bacteria,
so
whatever,
like
yeah.
Really simple, whatever it was.
But it looked like a worm on the screen. That's why I'm thinking worm.
Yeah.
Because I've obviously magnified it to a ridiculous degree. And basically, they've figured out a way to predict its movements, right? And it shows you kind of like, so there's got like a wireframe over the top of it, and then he says like, okay, and now watch this, and then it actually predicts the movement in advance. However, it only works for about 30 seconds, because as this is happening, the numbers that it's using to do this are getting so astronomically high and expanding and going up.
Yeah, every time that it has to make a decision and predict the next one, it's extrapolating upon itself, and it's this exponential growth of the numbers.
And at the end of this meeting, Forrest says, right, I want to have a minute with you. He sends out his cronies. He's like, okay, I want to offer you a job in devs. And he's all excited about this. And this is a big thing. We see him talk to Lily about it, and he's excited. He has a security check where Kenton, the head of security, who becomes kind of a main character. This is the first time we see him. Is kind of like questioning, because he's Russian. His name's Sergey. He has a Russian background, and he's asking them these questions about who he is, why him and his girlfriend haven't been married yet, and things like that.
And a lot of the question leads into the girlfriend as well, because like, well, she's Chinese, and he's like, I mean, yeah, sure, her parents were, but she was born here. She's American.
I think he says third generation, so I think it's a grandparents. Yeah.
Okay, fine. I watched this a few days ago now.
So, yeah, so we have this scene where Nick Offerman takes him into devs, and it's this really futuristic building. There's a couple of futuristic things around it as well. Like on the way in, there's these like pillars of like kind of gold illuminated pillars, and then there's another section where they're in like a forest, and there's like gold rings. It almost makes it look like at night time, at least, it looks like the trees are going into portals. Even though I don't think that's not what's really happening, but it looks like that because of these rings of light that are around them.
I can see where you're getting that visual from.
Yeah, it's really neat. But he takes them in, and they've got like, and it's like, hey, like, there's no cleaners in here. The one rule is that no one's allowed to bring any like devices in. No USB sticks, no phones, nothing that can record anything, so on and so on.
And they're on this like almost a floating cube essentially, where it's like completely separate from everything else. There is no connection to the outside world.
Yeah. Right down to their everything basically. Like the whole point of this is that it's shielding them from every connection. Yeah. But I don't just mean communication. Like it's shielding them from just like it's like a chamber. Like, and,
Yeah, it's completely off the grid.
Yeah. And they don't quite tell him what they're even doing. Like, what are they actually trying to build? He says, "Here, look at this code," and whatever this code is, Sergey has a reaction to it. He goes into the bathroom and essentially has a panic attack. Like, this code freaks him out. And
yeah, because and he asked them, like, "Hey, is this just theoretical, or have you run this?" And they're like, "No, it works," and that terrifies him.
Well, I think a key thing to point out here is that Katie, because Katie asked this, Katie's exact phrasing is, "Oh, no, it's real." And he's like, "Yeah, but if this is real, it'll change everything." And she says, "No, it won't change anything. That's the point." Which kind of is a tease for what it actually is. And I think the reason why he was hired for this is because what he was kind of cracking on his own is what they've already done. They've already cracked this prediction. Like, they can project and predict things, which is how they know that he's actually a spy, because he has his watch, and when he leaves the place that night, they Nick Offerman like confronts him in the forest and says, you used your James Bond spy watch to steal some of my code. And the security guy just outright kills him, pulls out a bag and suffocates him to death. And it's like, okay, all right, I was not expecting to know how he disappears. I was not expecting get into this.
No, and again, as I said, I had forgotten that he disappeared at all. So this was a bit of a shock in that I'm like, up till this point, I'm like, okay, this is our main character. This is who we're following. And then all of a sudden, bang, he's dead. It caught me off guard.
And then, of course, he doesn't show up. Lily gets worried, reports him missing. They all kind of, and everyone sort of really plays their part. Like, Nick Offerman really acts surprised by this and says, "Oh, we'll contact the police," and they're looking into it.
They go to Kenton and they look at the security footage, and they've got from the cameras him leaving the campus. They track him over like 3 or 4 cameras walking out.
Yeah. And so one of the things that happens before we get to the end, though, is that she goes to her ex-boyfriend Jamie and asks him to kind of try and track his phone or break into his phone or whatever. And it's very awkward. She kind of shows up sort of like in the street, sort of when he's leaving work or whatever it is, and they sit down, at the bar.
It's a little more specific than just track his phone, because she's got the phone and she's found like this Sudoku app on it.
I couldn't remember if she already had the phone or not, because I know she has the phone for episode 2.
No, she does, and that's why she goes to him, because this app is locked, and it has it's like needs a password, and it's like you get 3 attempts, which it'll wipe.
Which is suspicious for Sudoku. Like, why does it have a password?
That was already suspicious to her, because she was like, he doesn't like those. So this was weird. Why has he got an app of that on his phone? That's why she gravitated to that in the first place.
Yeah. So, but no, so she comes to see him and they sit down in the bar. It's really awkward. And he makes it clear that, like, he was in love with her. She kind of broke his heart. And they've not spoken in, years since this happened. And he's like, I heard that you're with someone. You're living together in our old apartment, and it kind of sets all this stuff up. And then she explains that her boyfriend has went missing and she needs his help to break into his phone. And I have to admit, I was this scene made me side with Jamie so hard, because see when like she explains what she wants him to do, and he kind of just spells out what she's just said to him. You want me to help you find your boyfriend? I've not seen you in years. You show up. No communication, no like how are you doing, no anything, and you want me to help you find your new boyfriend? F you. And he just leaves, and I'm like, I'm on his side. This was a dick move.
Yeah, I get that. I was a little bit frustrated because this was one of the few scenes that I didn't like that much, even though I agree with that bit of it. Everything before that just felt like so much exposition, because it was just him recapping their entire history.
Oh sure, no, I get that. That's fair. I like the stuff with him in episode 2 though, so I kind of like, as a whole, I like him as a character.
It's frustrating because it was important information to establish why he has this reaction and what this is, but I just felt like they delivered it in this way where we were supposed to let it slide, because he was like, so here's the situation, and reminding her of everything that she'd done essentially, but I just felt the exposition. It frustrated me.
I mind the bit at the end. The bit where he actually recaps at the end so he can say F you. I think that part's fine.
No, that bit is fine, yeah. But I think it was if it had been just that bit, I'd be okay with it.
Because that's him making his dramatic point. He's laying out the bullet points so that he can say F you, to really make it clear, hey, what you're doing right now is messed up. You're really hurting my feelings. So I'm leaving. So but ultimately she's called in. They've got essentially fake footage. They've deep faked some footage of Sergei killing himself, setting himself on fire. So the first episode ends with her kind of running out into the outside area and crying her eyes out, and everyone's kind of just somberly reacting to this horrible
it's
suicide.
Visceral to watch as well.
Oh yeah, it looks very, very violent. And episode 2, because this is the thing, I do like that it kind of sets up that this does affect Forrest. Like, he's not, it doesn't seem like he's taking this easily. Like, he's not happy that he just had to kill someone. We see him alone in his office and he's like upset and he's throwing things, and we see hints that this isn't something that he's happy about, that he's had to sort of let happen. Kent, on the other hand, seems like the sort of guy who just does this. Like, he's
just gets on with it.
But so from her side of the plot in episode 2, she goes back to Jamie, in a weird way, might we add, because she doesn't want to accept what's happened. Forrest tries to talk to her, and says, "Hey, your job is secure, your income is going to stay the same, and you can come back when you feel like you can. There's no pressure." He's a really good boss, basically. In that sense. But she goes to where Jamie lives. He's playing Dark Souls.
Yeah,
really specific.
Why wouldn't he?
And she actually climbs up the balcony area and appears at his window. So he quite rightly goes, "What the hell?" He could, and
she's like, "Well, would you have let me in?" I thought, well, not really, but
yeah. And obviously he's not happy at first, but then when she drops that, "Oh, by the way, the boyfriend I was looking for set himself on fire," like that tends to bring the conversation down a little bit and slows it down so that she can.
It definitely switches the mood a bit.
Yeah. So he's a bit more willing to help at this point. And do you know what I appreciate about this is that when he does hook up the phone and he's hacking it to get into the app and whatever, when he sees the code and he starts talking about how it's bouncing around from Kazakhstan to Russia, I like that he, even before she even thinks about it, he just outright says something that implies, "Oh, he must be a spy." This is clearly what this is.
This is clearly a Russian state messaging service, and the only reason we would have that is to report to our handler, which means spy.
Yeah. So, and I like that he just jumps to that, because it's yeah, we did, the audience definitely did. So it makes complete sense. And she hugs him when she's leaving, and it's kind of this awkward thing. And he does come back later, because he's concerned that she might actually try and talk to whoever it is, because he's changed the password so she can read the messages. But of course he's too late. She's already done it. she responded, and whoever's on the other end immediately responded. And this guy says, "Hey, meet me at the under the bridge at this time tomorrow." And this is where we get that beautiful stuff with the fog. I loved these shots. It was great. And he basically says, "Look, he still loved you. He wasn't lying about that. This is just part of his life. I've got a wife and kids. They don't know that I do this." And I think what's interesting here is that I think media has trained us to always assume Russians are bad guys.
It really has.
In particular when it comes to spy stuff, because they're clearly against the state. But this isn't necessarily them going after the US government. This is them specifically going after devs and this particular project. And maybe this is because they want this technology, if they suspect what it is, for their own purposes. But
what's really interesting is I don't think they do suspect what it is. I don't think they have any idea. They just know that they want it.
But it's this kind of thing where he's trying to convince her to help him, under the guise of, if you want to know more, if you're ready to walk away now and accept what you're seeing, and accept that he didn't kill himself, he was murdered. If you're ready to just accept that and move on, then you can. But if you want to do more, you can contact me by putting a sign at your window or whatever. And
he's so genuine as well, though.
Yeah, he's very genuine. But I think he's appealing to her as if, no, they're the bad guys, and you can help me if you agree to. And that could just be a play to get her to help, and it's not true at all. But part of me is actually kind of curious, given the way it presents things so far, this Russian spy group could end up being the good guys, but they could also be completely villainous and
I think
mistrusting.
It's interesting that they could both be villains, in the sense that they're Russians doing it for Russian state and doing it for their own reasons. That could absolutely be long-term villainous, but also, as much as he's maybe using her here, maybe he did care that hey, they just killed one of my people, and that they're not good guys necessarily. It's not that the Americans are good and the Russians are bad. Maybe they're kind of just both bad and working against each other.
And Kenton's actually spying on her because he still suspected that she would not let this go. So he follows the guy later, and we get this fight scene in a parking lot. That the Russian guy does stab him, but he's able to win the fight. It plays out to music. It's a very stylized little fight. I mean, the actual fight itself is really just simple and down and dirty. They're just kind of grabbing at each other and trying to like choke each other. But it plays out to music, so it's got this kind of stylized feel to it. And that it sort of intercuts with her, Lily, that is making the choice to put an FU sign at the window. Because you think, I like this as well, because I feel like when he said that you could do this, if you contact me via the window, like, it felt like, okay, that's naturally where the show's going to go, right? Where she's going to eventually, something's going to inspire her to make this choice to become the new mole, and that's what the main plot of the show's going to be. And I love that the ending subverts that and says, no, she's going to do what Jamie did in episode 1. She's just going to say F you.
Yeah. And I'm sure it'll still work its way back into it. Like, for whatever reason, she'll end up back in there and probably linked up with the Russians again at some point. Well, there's a moment of defiance first.
Well, let's assume that they can predict. Well, I don't know if she'll end up with the Russians again. She might. But I feel like maybe, let's say that they can predict what's going to happen to some extent, and that's why they knew Sergei was doing what he's doing. Maybe the reason why Forrest doesn't let Kenton kill her or doesn't let Kenton stop her is because if she is looking into things, maybe she is genuinely looking into it on her own. She's not working for some foreign agency or a different company that's going to steal anything. Like, he's willing to let it go because it's just her doing it for her own, I mean, curiosity is not really the right word, because it's, investigating the murder of her boyfriend. But yeah,
her own peace of mind, yeah.
Like, maybe that's something he can understand, because obviously with Forrest, we get this plot line where, he had a daughter who died, and he's kind of obsessed. We see him using the projection, the machine, which, by the way, the machine itself, see, when we first see it, it has a very kind of like, this thing's going to lead to the apocalypse feel about it. Like, I was getting this feeling of like, this is going to cause the end of the world.
Yep.
That's what it felt like.
Definitely get that.
That was the tone.
And it, as well as project and, and predict the future, it can see the past as well. It can extrapolate and accurately represent what actually happened in the past. Well,
this is the thing, is that by this point in the episode, about halfway through episode 2, we're at the point now where we're kind of on board with, okay, this thing can kind of project some element of the future. That's what they're working on. That's why it's so secretive. And, because there's a lot of dialogue, we've not even mentioned this yet, but there's a lot of dialogue in the first episode from Forrest about how life is on a tram line. And, and maybe that's why Sergei has the existential crisis, because he realizes that there's no such thing as free will, because even if he thinks he has free will, all these things are still going to happen regardless of whatever, right? But there's a lot of dialogue like that from him, and how, and even in this episode when he's at his house, and because I was surprised when he pulled into his house. I'm like, this guy must be like a billionaire. Why does he have this little
shack?
Yeah. And Kenton sort of says that, but. And he's sort of like, no, he's sure of what he's doing because he knows this is what he's supposed to be doing. Like, he's kind of like letting this sort of guide him, and he knows that he's on the right track. But he's also obsessing over projections of the past of his daughter. We see him use it for that machine, from the machine. But before that, of course, we have this big scene. So, like I'm saying, we're ready to accept to a point of what's going on, and then it throws us this insane scene, and it is insane, where it's there's a couple of characters who work at the devs that we sort of see briefly in episode 1. I think the big guy Stuart, the big sort of chubbier guy, and there's a kid, and like Katie's there as well, and they're looking at, they're putting in some numbers, and they're debating about how the generation jokes, where the old guy's kind of like, your generation doesn't know anything. Do you know good music? You don't listen to Bach, you don't listen to whatever. He's like, so shut up. And Katie's just like, just don't call the machine baby, all right? Let's just not do that, right? But then we get a projection of the past, and we see the crucifixion. This is insane. Yeah. This, out of nowhere, we get this visual representation that seems to confirm that Christ existed and there was a crucifixion.
Yeah, I think that's what's so fascinating about this is, okay, so what they did there is they can project the past and go, okay, we can now prove as definitively as possible that this man was crucified here.
Yes.
We can see that. Obviously, they didn't go far enough to predict or project whether or not there was a resurrection. But, this is still, okay, we're adding to confirming parts of the story, right? And you confirm enough of it, and then maybe you believe one extra bit because 99% of it's there. And I think that's what ties in with the next part of this is where Forrest is like, oh, well, I mean, you were getting there. It's hazy, but it's not good enough. I need 100%. And Stuart was it. The other guy's like, hey, look, it's just never going to be possible. We can't ever get to 100% with these sorts of numbers that we're running. The computational power just will not ever exist. It's too big, and we can get as close as we can. We can be pretty sure, but 100% is just not possible. Which again, okay, so we're throwing in this doubt where can we trust these predictions entirely? They might have been turned out right with Sergey, right? They saw he was a spy.
Yeah, there's a margin for error. That's basically what we're saying here. There's a margin for error.
But how big is that margin for error, and how much are they basing decisions on these things that they're predicting that might not actually be correct?
Well, this is I think getting to the crux of what this show seems to be about is the godlike kind of power, and not just because of the crucifixion thing, because the crucifixion, like just because someone was crucified doesn't necessarily prove that he was the son of God or anything like that. I mean, this is just this physical event happened in some capacity, right? But like this godlike idea of like knowing what's going to happen, and then in turn letting that drive your decisions and becoming obsessed by it. What did I watch? I reviewed something very recently with this theme.
I don't know if you did that with me.
Maybe not. No, maybe an Ace episode or a Twilight Zone. But this idea of obsessing over, like, because you think you know what's coming, so you become. Oh yeah, it was Ace. It was Until the End of the World. It wasn't exactly. It wasn't predicting the future. It was more about seeing your own dreams, but then letting that dictate kind of, because that's kind of like a view into your own soul, right? Because it's not something that you're choosing to believe. It's something that's happening on its own, sort of within, and kind of becoming addicted and obsessed with that. And I wonder if this is going to go down kind of a path of like almost letting this dictate the future because you take it as an absolute certainty.
It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where it only happens the way that it's predicted it is because you've seen the prediction and then go, well, this is how it's going to happen. So, of course.
So I feel like there's going to be elements of that. Obviously, the potential of this is very much like, like what can this be used for? Does Minority Report start to happen? Do they start predicting crimes in the world if this gets out into the public? Not that I think it will do in the course of the show. I think over the course of the show, it's going to be a secretive thing that we're going to have. And as far as sole purpose for this, the reason why he's pouring everything into this is because he wants to see his daughter again. He wants to see just these perfect memories, because they're quite fuzzy right now, because we see him watching his daughter, this memory of his daughter, but it's just this fuzzy.
If he can use it to essentially predict a different timeline, in the sense of, okay, if she didn't die, what would have happened?
Well, let me bring that up, because back in episode 1, when Sergey gives his presentation with the little prediction that only lasts for 30 seconds, he, Forrest says, okay, so what's your hypothesis here? What's happening? And well, he says, I've got two ideas. One's the prediction thing, and the other one is that it's not predicting anything. It's just that, or the end of the 30 seconds. It's not that it's wrong. It's that the universe in which this prediction is right isn't this one. That there's like a multiverse, and one after that point we're in a different universe. Where so there is a version of this world where our prediction's still true.
Yeah,
it may be true for another 5 minutes before it breaks down.
And Forrest claims that he doesn't believe in the multiverse theory.
Yeah, but I think it coming up in that scene though, for us, for thematically for the audience, is important.
Yeah.
So that does beg some questions as to what exactly we're seeing here when we look at these images, and what these predictions are. Like, are they predictions for this world? And if they're not, then, and that's maybe one of these things where it never gives us a clear answer. That's maybe one of these ambiguous things where right up until the end of the show, because it's an 8-episode miniseries. It's not like we're going to have seasons and seasons. So when we get to the end of the season, this might be a case of like, we have no definitive answer. We might be speculating until the very end. Like, is this multiple timelines or multiple parallel universes, or is it an actual prediction of like one world and predestination, that kind of thing?
Lack of absolute clarity is pretty common theme in Garland's work. So I mean, that wouldn't be surprising.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. So I just, so the science fiction sort of like, theorizing and pondering of the big ideas is already there. And I'm not surprised it's already there because it's Garland. I understand why they put these two out together though, because I feel like episode 2 is the one that really makes my mind go with it.
It is, and I think that's one of my biggest concerns going forward with the show is this stuff is so fascinating. I want to see it go down this route. I'm so excited by all of this science fiction elements of it, and a lot of like Lily's stuff. I'm like, yeah, sure, right, whatever. It's fine. But my concern is that I get so excited by all the sci-fi stuff that it kind of overshadows the other stuff, and maybe we don't get enough of this to feel like, oh, I'm really getting my time's worth out of this whole episode.
Well, I presume that as she gets closer to it, they'll merge, and it'll become more relevant.
I hope so, yeah.
But I mean, I have no reason to doubt Garland. I mean, he's writing and directing all 8 episodes, so.
Yeah, I mean, I've liked pretty much everything he's done so far. Just it was just in the back of my head as I finished. I was like, I was so into that stuff. Like that stuff is head and shoulders, like that sci-fi element is head and shoulders above the character stuff so far.
Yeah,
and there's plenty of time for that to turn around and the character stuff to really get compelling and up to it. I've just in the back of my head, I was like, what if it's not? Is it? Am I going to feel like I just wanted more of this side of it instead?
Do you know what's funny about this? I was thinking about this as I was watching it. Is that this is exactly the sort of thing that we were kind of theorizing that the White Rose might have in Mr. Robot. This exact sort of project, and it was making me I was chuckling to myself like, oh, this could have totally been the reveal of what White Rose's thing was this device.
Pretty much, actually, yeah.
So here it is. But no, I like the first 2 episodes. I think the science fiction elements and the filmmaking are my favorite parts. But I actually do like most of the characters, and I don't hate Lily. I think.
No, I agree. Honestly, my only real problems are some of her acting and then some exposition. I mentioned the scene with Jamie. I thought some of the exposition from Alison Pill's stuff about about Forrest's daughter. I thought some of that was a bit exposition-y and just kind of, hey, I'm just putting this out there so audience. I definitely got that feeling a couple of times.
Yeah, because it was actually just it's really simple, but there's a really solid scene with Lily actually where she's on the phone to her mum in Hong Kong. And her mum's like, we don't even hear her side of the conversation, but we can just tell from context that her mum wants her to go to Hong Kong and live with her for a bit to take care of her after the death of Sergei. And she says no, and she has to she repeats over and over again, no, don't worry, I have friends, they're helping me. And as she's saying this, the camera's just this wide shot of the room, and it's sort of pulling back slowly, and it's like it's empty. It's just her, and she's surrounded by empty chairs. And then eventually, she actually said one of the last things she says to her mum is, "No, they're even here right now. They're taking care of me." And it's actually just this really depressing and really sad moment.
Yeah, it was kind of weird because we do know she had that one friend that she was talking to a few times, and she was calling her when Sergei didn't come home at night.
Work friend. I don't know if she's.
No, but that's my point. She was close enough that she was calling her in the middle of the night, going, "Hey, he's not home yet." And so I'd say it's a little bit beyond work colleague, right? So I was surprised that she wasn't, the friend kind of being more involved after this death, and kind of being there. So it caught me off guard. I think it had set up that they were a bit closer than this.
But clearly not. So there you go. That's the first 2 episodes of Devs. Very intrigued. Episode 3 review will be very soon because we got very delayed on this first pair, but we'll be back with episode 3 soon. So hopefully you guys are enjoying it as well. I think the early reviews for this were very mixed and said it was kind of Alex Garland's kind of misfire. And watching 2 episodes of it, and maybe they saw more of it, maybe they saw all of it, maybe they saw half of it, maybe it does go downhill. And well, yeah, I mean, for it to live up to Ex Machina and Annihilation, it'll take a little bit of work. But so far, I wouldn't call this a misfire.
No, I mean, if it stays at this level of quality, I would say it will be my least favorite of those 3 works. But misfire would be far too harsh, by a long shot. Like this would still be very good. I feel not masterpiece level.
I feel like this is very appealing to people who like Alex Garland's style of science fiction, and maybe some of the little faults that it has are kind of maybe a barrier for everyone who just wants something to be really. I mean, nah, because it is still good, but like maybe there's a barrier there where it's working for fans of his type of work, but it's not necessarily working for anyone else. I'm thinking kind of like how I guess like Drive works for the mainstream audience, but then the rest of Refn is just for Refn fans. I feel like Garland's, you know,
this is Garland's Only God Forgives. Is that what you're saying?
Kind of. Well, I mean, so was Annihilation, to be fair. I don't think Annihilation worked for everyone either. I think Ex Machina and Dread, which was mostly Garland, he wrote it and basically directed a lot of it. Like, I think those are very mainstream appealing, and then I think Annihilation's really weird, so it's maybe a bit more for your art house sci-fi fan, and then I feel like this is also for your more filmmaking savvy sci-fi fan.
I think that's likely. I think, again, all of that is with the caveat that it's possible that those early reviewers saw more than we did, and it went downhill.
Very possible.
But we're gonna hope that's not the case.
It's only 8 episodes. We're a quarter of the way through it already, so
that's weird. Yeah.
Yeah, but I definitely want to watch more of it. So we'll be back very soon with the next. We'll probably, by the time this goes up, probably tomorrow will be when the episode 3 review goes up. So look forward to that. But let us know what you thought of episode 1 and 2 of Devs in the comments below. I am very intrigued. I love the science fiction prodding of it. So thank you very much for watching. You can let us know what you thought in the comments. Like and subscribe, all the usual stuff. Ding the bell on YouTube for notifications. If you want to support the show, you can rate the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Give us 5 stars. Helps us out a lot if you do that. If you want to support the show financially, you can do that over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and give us as little as $1 per month, and that helps keep all the content coming. But you know, have a look. But otherwise, that's it. So thank you once again. Check out other sci-fi shows that we're doing. I'm doing Picard with Tara every week. Westworld season 3 is about to begin, so we'll be doing that. Really looking forward to that. So go and have a look and check out the other TV reviews that we do, as well as all the other shows we do as well, of course. So you can find everything on MailFuzz TV on YouTube. Go to the Patreon page for a list of all the audio feeds and all that kind of stuff. But that's it. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?